Hello, if you've been here before, welcome back. If not, hi, my name is David. I make videos talking about media that I want to talk about. This is my reading wrap up for the entire month of February, all the books that I read in this kind of short month. I always forget how short February is, and I had recorded the half month of this, and I was like, I'm already like mostly through February, so I don't have that many books to talk about in this clip. But like as usual, I'll have recorded the first half of the month already, and then this will be the next month, or sorry, this will be the next half of this month, which is just going to be the last weekend. But anyways, I'm joined here by, as before, Figment, and then Matthew. This is Matthew's plushie, Trixie, the Triceratops. And I decided to pair these two because they are distant cousins. Dinosaurs and dragons are distant cousins. How? I don't know. And so they will be joining me as I talk about these books. I want to do a quick reminder that I am starting to do more quarter rankings in my books. That adds a bit more nuance in what I'm trying to say about the books. And so I think I have some quarter rankings. I don't remember. I'd have to check. But in this month, I read a total of 10 books, I believe, 10 or 11. Some of them I don't have physically, so it's hard to keep track of. But that's 10 books that I read this month. And I honestly will say it's not been an amazing month. It's been a good month. But there are some books that I expected to be really, really good, and they didn't deliver. And so, yeah. This is it. Anyways, back to you, or not back to you, because I'm the back to you. Cut to me from the past. Okay, it's me in the past. So, to begin, the first book that I finished in February was The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu, translated by Ken Liu. This was a reread. I had read this book 3 years ago, 2023. It's 26 right now. And I had liked it. I thought it was good, but I didn't want to continue the series. But then I decided to start cleaning through my shelves, and I just randomly pulled for a series that I wanted to continue, and that was Three-Body Problem. And now I'm going to continue the series, so for the next few months I will be talking about this story. I give it a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. I understood it more this time around, because I would say that the first time around I didn't understand much of it. So this story spans several different eras, mainly during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, during the 70s, and then during modern day. And it's just, it's about humans dealing with an impending alien invasion, but the alien invasion isn't coming for another 4,000 years. Or 400 years. 400 years, that's it. And the Three-Body Problem itself is about a video game in this book that is used to sort of make people understand and care for the aliens. And the three-body is the three celestial bodies that the aliens have lived under. And the video game is the video game is my favorite parts of this book. Sort of when they stop doing the video game, then it sort of gets a little, not boring, but I really liked the video game aspects of this book. But yeah, it's just a great sci-fi concept overall, hard science fiction as well. Once we get started talking about like over 4-dimensional stuff towards the latter half of the book, it got a little complicated there. But I really enjoyed all of the sci-fi that we were giving in the aliens and stuff like that. I feel like we needed more focused character work in this, because there's like a handful of main characters here and there. The main woman, who's the person who actually was able to contact the aliens, Ye Wenji. I liked her a lot. But then like the other surrounding characters, mainly the bigger POV character, Wang Miao, I didn't really care for him. He was sort of boring. I did like Da Shi, Shi Kyang, I liked that. I liked him a lot. Yewenji's daughter. What's her name? There's a list of characters in this book. Um, Wenji's daughter, the daughter of Yewenji, Dingyi, she was not a character, but her boyfriend was. But he was basically the same character as his other boyfriend, Wei Chang, was a husband, whatever. Though some characters just felt like they needed to be condensed, and I think they did that in the show. It is a Netflix show that I will want to watch once I finish the series. So I'm finishing. I'm gonna finish the series so that I can watch the show. Also, because it's a very famous science fiction story, and so I'm really excited to see what is coming next. So the next two books that I read, I do not have them physically. I finished the 39th book of the Animorphs. It's called The Hidden by K.A. Applegate. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. This one's a little kooky story. It's so most of these Animorph books maintain a sort of like formula. You know, like the kids are doing kid stuff, and then all of a sudden they have to respond to a mission or do a mission or something like that. Here it starts like you hit the ground running with all of a sudden the Yeerks, they have a device, recovered from the Helmicrons, which the Helmicrons were in a book prior. I forget what number it was, but they're little tiny aliens that are super annoying. But they recovered their ship after the Animorphs destroyed them, and the Helmicrons had a technology to be able to scan and detect morphing energy, which is the energy they use to be able to anamorph. And so what they have to do is play keep away with the anamorphing cube, the cube that gave them the anamorphing powers. So they have to play keep away, and it's from the get-go, from the very first chapter. It is Cassie, the POV character, trying to outrun and outsmart the Yeerks, who are in a helicopter with the sensor, right? And so I like that it shook up how the formula was going to go. It gets a little kooky because the cube that gives Animorph powers, gets in the hands of some animals. So, for example, in the cover, you see the buffalo. That buffalo is an actual buffalo that learns how to morph and becomes the assistant principal briefly. And also, there's an ant that touches the cube and then touches Cassie and begins turning into Cassie. And so those were really fun, kind of crazy, kind of went what's the term, off the wheels. But I liked the structure of it. I didn't like the ending as much. The ending was like a little rushed, I feel, and it really maintained the status quo really hard. You know, like the Animorphs generally maintain the status quo book through book. It's only like through our arcs that it changes. But the way that this book ended, I was like, okay, that's nothing happened. Nothing changed after this beyond just like internal change, I guess. So it's this fine. It was a 3.75. The next book that I had is also not physically from the library, was The Throne of Fire, the Kane Chronicles #2 by Rick Riordan, which I gave a 3.25 out of 5. I believe I gave the first book 3 out of 5, and unfortunately, I just feel like this book was not a market improvement of the series so far. I have the same critiques of this book as I do with the first book. So, Kane Chronicles is about Carter and Sadie Kane, who are dealing with Egyptian gods and stuff. And it's written by Rick Riordan. It's set in the Percy Jackson world, but the way that the gods are handled are very different than the Greek gods. There's no demigods or not anything like that. They are descendants of pharaohs, and they do magic. And the gods can be channeled as like sources of energy, but you're not like aligned to a god like a demigod is. You know what I mean? I think that's interesting. That's what was set up in the first book. In the second book, I had said in the first book I didn't quite enjoy how the magic system was laid out, and mostly that it was not actually laid out. But in this book, the second book, they do lay out a bit more of the magic and how it becomes a little stratified as you keep learning different types of magic. So I was happy with that. I don't quite enjoy the framing device of it's a recording by Carter and Sadie sent it to people. It used a lot more of that framing device this time than it did in the first book, and I feel it's just fine enough to have it in first person. I think that's fine. But anyways, the side characters were also good standouts. The gods that they encounter and the other magicians that they work with are amazing, are pretty fun as well. Walt is a really fun character. I remembered Walt. I thought he was going to be in the first book. So when I read the first book, I was like, there's this character. I might just be confusing him with the uncle. But no, Walt came in the second book. Zia is also really fun. And then I forget. It's not Bast, because Bast is the cat lady. She's fun. The Bess, I don't have the book with me, so I can't check. But the dwarf god, he was really emotional too. Really good writing there. But overall, I think that the structure of these type of stories, I don't quite enjoy. The pacing was slow as well, and it's just the same issues that I had with the first book. The next book that I read in the month of February was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I am reading this alongside, I'm going to be participating in the read along hosted by Steph over at Coffee Over Apples. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to take place, but they are reading, her and her shared host, I forget their name, I'm so sorry, are reading each of the three books of this trilogy bi-monthly, every 2 months. And so I finished this in February. The second book I'll be reading in January, February, March, April, and then June will be the third book. And so I don't know if I'll be posting this before or after they do a video about that. I'm not sure. But anyways, Poppy War. R.F. Kwan's very famous in the literary world. Babel. I read Babel. She just came out with Catabasis. And this one, I think, is very much like she's just now learning how she is as a writer. I much prefer Babel to this book. I give it a 4 out of 5. And this felt like 3 books in one. And they were pretty well mixed. Like the first part, it felt like a Babel dark academia type deal with like the main character, Rin, who elevates herself from an orphan in a poor village to this prestigious academy in this country, a fantasy country. And so big portion of the first part of the book is her in studying and getting in that. If I felt the same emotions that I felt in Babel in terms of how stressful it has to be to study, the toll that takes on you, I totally got that, because I also experienced that when I was in college. But yeah, it was really a lot during that moment. And I liked it, but I was like, this feels very similar to Babel. So I don't know, it's not about the Poppy War yet. So what's happening? And then the second book feeling is when she graduates and she gets into the 13th division. So for the map, let's pull up the map. The country is split up in different houses or animals. Like, for example, Rin comes from the rooster sector. And so when they graduate, they're assigned to any of these sectors. But because she's special during her schooling, she learns how to channel the power of a god, which, that's not normal. She gets into the 13th division, which is the Psych, I believe is pronounced. I'm not fully sure. And it's just a division of military people who are outcasts and different. And it felt very Suicide Squad-ish in terms of, I kept remembering The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, which I read last year, which is very, Suicide Squad. This is a ragtag group of outcasts who are outcasts and not like other girls, not like other people, and they have powers. They draw powers from gods and stuff. And so I was like, this feels very similar to The Devils. So when I got to that section, I was like, okay, here we go again with this. And then we got to the actual Poppy War. That was crazy. That was a lot. It was very intense, very graphic content, and it was hard to read. But there was parts of it that I was reading. I was like, I don't know if this is trauma porn or if it's actually depicting something. Because I didn't know. I came in blind with this book, and then towards the end of the book, when I finished, there's an author note that talks about the rape of Nanjing that happened in World War II or prior to World War II. I'll have some information over here. The rape of Nanjing, which is Japan attacking China and doing a lot of atrocities. And as I was reading the atrocities that happened in this book, I was like, this cannot be imagined. I feel like the the imagination needed to write something like this means that you are not like a good person, I would think. But Arfconda doesn't strike me as that, so this has to be real. This has to be real human evils that I'm reading. And it looks like it is. She said that in the author's note that she did a lot of research on the rape of Nanjing and Sino-Japanese relations and the history of World War II in China, and that there were battle scenes that were depictions that were similar to other actual historical depictions, and sexual assault, abuse, slavery by the Japanese military. It draws heavily from Iris Chang's The Rape of Nanking, The Forgotten Holocaust of World War II, which is an account of the Nanjing Massacre. Very little was made up. Most of what you see truly happened. And so I was like, when I was reading, I was like, I don't know if this is supposed to be trying to say something, or if it's just gore for gore's sake. But no, it is actually depicting history. It's depicting what happened in history, so we don't forget that. Because yeah, I will never forget all the horrible things that I read that happened in that one city. I guess spoilers for that, but like, come on, it's Poppy War. But besides that, Rin is an amazing character. She's really well written. I really liked her actions, her decisions, the things that she did totally made sense. Even if they were not good decisions or I didn't like those decisions, they totally made sense with who she was. And I think it's very strong character writing. And yeah, I'm really excited to continue reading this series. Because the read-along is going to be every other month, I'm going to be reading a different trilogy similar to this on the off month. So we'll talk about that in March, May, July. Yes, right? In February, March, April, May, June, January, March, May, July. There you go. The next book that I read in the month of February was The Hexologists, A Tangle in Time by Josiah Bancroft. I read the first book last month. No, a few months ago. December, I think. I'm not fully sure. I don't remember. But I read the first book. Finally got to the second book. I heard a lot of good things about this book. So I kind of came in with like high expectations, and they weren't reached. It is a 4 out of 5 for me. And the thing is, so the first book and this book is about Isolde and Warren, who are the Hexologists, sort of like private investigators in this fictional city. And the first book dealt with a mystery about why the king is sick, and like we're trying to solve the king, and there's also a pretender of the throne, etc. Here, A Tangle in Time doesn't touch on any of that. Instead, it's a different murder. It's a murder of an artist, and Isolde goes to finds the body. Something happens. Time rewinds, and she finds the body again, and it's changed. So it's the dramatic irony. We know that something happened. By itself, isolated, it was really good. I really liked how the mystery unfolded. However, isolated, I would say that there were some plot points and plot beats that felt like they were meandering and that were somewhat unnecessary. Once we know everything, once we see everything, we can see that these plot points that don't seem connected are actually connected for specific reasons. But in the moment, it felt superfluous. Obviously, it's not all the scenes were used very well to deliver something or reveal something or another. But the experience as I'm reading it is I don't want to go to this underground location. I don't want to go to this party. I don't want to do this if it's not pertaining to the actual mystery. But it does pertain to the overall story. I did like the fun time travel stuff. This is some different type of time travel that I've seen prior. It's very much the antagonist, the person who discovers the time travel, no spoilers for that, accidentally discovers time travel, and that begins to affect the data the universe. So at one point they're talking about how the moon was split in half, and I was like, I don't remember that from the first book, but okay. But no, it's because the time travel affected reality, which caused a ripple effect that broke the moon. And then after another time thing, birds all of a sudden have teeth now. And then as they kept doing time stuff, the reality kept shifting around. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. But there was that moment where I was like, I guess the moon has always been split in half. I don't remember that from the first book, but whatever. Isolated out of itself, fine, good. However, I do want to say that I did not enjoy how it was not a continuation of the first book, how I wanted it, right? This is a me thing. I think written as is, good, great. The language is really fun. The prose, fun. But I really liked the plot threads set up for the first book that don't do anything here, right? Like I really like the wizard, the wizardry. Obolos is a character from Isolde's past who's a wizard. He was really cool. He doesn't come back here. I really liked the queen, the king's sister. I keep calling her queen, but it's the king's sister. I think princess. Yeah, princess can do all four types of magic. Really fun. She doesn't come back here. And the main antagonist who does get killed in the first book, those repercussions are not mentioned here at all. And I'm like, I wanted more connective tissue between both books because I really enjoyed the first book and I had high expectations for the second book. And I just didn't get that. But as is, so the book, I guess, would be like pretty high rating. My emotion about it were pretty low rating. So I think it just evens out to an even 4 out of 5. Really good, really well structured. I just didn't quite connect with it like I wanted to. And I also didn't quite connect with the first book. But I do think I liked the first book more than this one. I think I rated that one also 4 out of 5. But because of my bias and because of I know it's good, technically good, 4 out of 5. The next book that I read this month was Night of the Witch by Sara Raasch and Beth Revis. I read this book for a book club, physically, and I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. So, okay. Sara Raasch I know from Snow Like Ashes, which I read when it came out in 2014, and I only read the first book, and I remember liking it a lot, but never continued with it. So I want to continue, but this was not chosen for me. It was for the book club, and I thought it was pretty fine. It's about Fritzi, who is a witch during the 16th century Europe, and Otto, who is a witch hunter. And Otto is working against his comrades because they killed his innocent stepmother, and so he wants revenge. And Fritzi wants revenge because the witch hunters killed her entire family, and so they're working together to try to stop them, or at least save themselves. And I think that's a much better synopsis than what is told here, because what is told here is that it's a romance, that it's a very fantasy and like high fantasy forward, but it's not. It's set in Europe, it's set in Germany, and it's set in 1521. And it is a commentary on the witch trials that happened during that time that eventually led to the Salem witch trials in the 1600s, I believe. And that's good and great. That's fine. I feel like this story would benefit from having lived in a fictional fantasy world, right? Because the Hexenjägers, the witch hunters, they are from one city, Trier. And yeah, during that time, cities are really powerful, city-states and stuff like that, but it just feels very small compared to like what other fantasy stories are doing. So I wish it was not a historical fiction. I wish it was not set in our world. I think it would have hit a lot harder if it was in a different world. Either way, I really like the magic system. In many different fantasy stories, the magic system, there's like the good magic system and the bad magic system. And usually a bad magic system is more interesting. It does more things than the structured good good magic. Here it was the opposite. The good magic system felt very stratified, but also there was like wiggle room in between stuff. And like, for example, Fritzy does potion magic and plant magic, right? She knows about plants and what they can do. Her cousin Liesel does divination magic and fire magic, and her mother does protection magic and some other kind of magic, right? But it's like very like groupings that felt natural. But then we have wild magic, which is her brother uses, and her brother's the main antagonist. The wild magic apparently is anything, and the only way to do it is by committing atrocities and doing really bad, evil stuff. Turns out that's all a lie, but either way, wild magic felt very a wizard did it type magic, right? It didn't have any sort of grounding, and there were moments where Dieter, the brother who could do wild magic, does like psychological stuff, like mental images, like illusions and stuff. But that's not all he does. But those are only ones that are actually like grounded in some sort of magic system. You know what I mean? And so I was like, why is this wild magic just so vague? But the actual magic is the structured magic is pretty good, you know. So there was that. The romance between Fritzy and Otto was too fast. I think it's okay to have a romance. Straight people have rights. I know. It's okay to have a romance, but I feel like it needed more space to grow. And I feel like because it is a duology, it could have concluded in the second book. But I think it moved way too fast for what was happening in the story. Like, Fritzy's entire family and Coven was just burned alive. Why is she sort of like, oh my god, his chest is really wide? Like, come on. Just slow it down a bit. And the same emotional plot points that we usually have in the story can easily be reached by having a budding relationship towards the end of the book, right? I didn't like the antagonist. Dieter, like I said, he felt too cartoony. He felt like he was just evil to be evil's sake, and that doesn't sound interesting to me. There was a really intense torture scene that was really well written. It sounds bad. I liked it. I really liked it. It was well written. It definitely towed the line. Very graphic. Really good that they went there. You know what I mean? But there are other moments where I'm like, so for example, like Night of the Witch and Poppy War had some pretty graphic scenes. Night of the Witch, Poppy War, it's sort of like different impetuses, but the same sort of like handling. Like Poppy War, historical. Honestly, yeah, this is also historical. They're both commenting on historical things, and they're both handling it with the severity and seriousness that it needs. I feel like juxtaposed with the romance in the same book, then that kind of gets kind of weird. But I appreciate that they went to those limits, to those levels. I wish that there was more critique on the mother, and also I'm basically just going down the list of the things we talked about in the book club. That was yesterday. They kept talking about people being burned alive, and they never pushed how horrifying that is. And I'm like, hello, you're witches. Can we talk about that a bit more? It's a 3.75. I do want to continue the series, but I'm not going to immediately continue the series just yet. I did buy the book. Hold on. I did buy the book, the second book. It's The Fate of Magic, and it's a soft cover, but it has these sprayed edges. And I will read it eventually, but I'm not going to immediately read it like all the series that I'm trying to finish. You know what I mean? The next book that I read in the month of February, the last one for Past Me, is the book of the month pick for February, Good People by Patmeena Sabit. I gave this book a 4.25. I think that's the highest grade. Yeah, 4.25. Good for you! This is a book of the month pick, and it's about the story of the Sharaf family in Virginia, who moved here from Afghanistan, and a tragedy happens involving their eldest daughter, the second daughter, Zora. However, the story is told secondhand by people surrounding the family, such as family friends, people in the Afghani immigrant community, news reporters, and private investigators, witnesses, people surrounding in the area, owners of buildings and businesses and stuff like that. And I thought it was so interesting that, we come in knowing the implicit bias of all these people. And so we know that there is strong bias, so we can set that aside and try to consume what's happening, knowing that the information we're getting is filtered by a lot of different lenses, by a lot of different agendas, right? And it made everything incredibly ambiguous, which was so good. Like, I was about a quarter to finish the book, and I was like, it's so ambiguous as to what happened. I wish it stays like this. I do not want a concrete answer. I do not want a concrete answer, because this type of story, this type of crime, this type of tragedy, I feel like having one answer or the other makes it less satisfying in the end. And all of these strong biases made it so every single chapter, every single perspective convinced me, and then the next person convinced me the opposite. And that was really fun. It deals with obviously xenophobia and racism and misogyny, about how women are controlled by different societies, both in this society and in Afghani society. And I do wish that there was some form of critique against some of these point of views. Most of them were critiquing the family. We don't ever get a point of view from a family member, which I did really enjoy. I was like, do not commute, do not. I was like, maybe the brother might appear towards the end. No one from the immediate family is given a point of view. Only like surrounding family, like an aunt, is given a point of view. Best friends given a point of view. No one from the family is given a point of view, which I think is a very risky, good decision, strong decision for this type of story. Maintaining that ambiguity was so important to have us come to our own decisions, because at some points I can believe that this person, no spoilers, this person did this crime, and some other times I can't believe that. I would never believe that this same person would ever do this crime. And so it's really well written in that way. And I want to defend this book because I feel like people might say that there was no conclusion. The biggest form of conclusion is that they decide to not pursue charges against the person accused of doing this crime. There's not going to be any continuation for this. But even that then is also criticized by the points of view. I was talking about criticism, yes. So the POVs criticize the family, and POVs criticize the society. But no one ever criticizes the POVs themselves. Like, for example, parts of the community keep talking bad about Zora, the daughter who's the center of this crime, and then her friends are also talking about Zora, and they give different perspectives, but there's no critique about maybe the friends are being told something or see something different or interpret something different, and the family, the family, friends, the community should not be talking to her about like that, or there should be change. It doesn't critique any of the POVs like that, and I wish there was something like that, and that would have elevated the story. I think what is missing from this story as well is it just moved super quickly, and there were times where I'm like, why are we talking about this again? Why are we going over here? I wish there was more clarity in terms of time periods and who's speaking what and stuff like that, because it kept flipping back and forth between the family's past and present, and so that got kind of confusing. Now it got really confusing towards the beginning, but that would have elevated even further. And yeah, I think this was a really amazing book. I honestly might put it at 4.5, thinking about it, because it was just such a strong voice as well. All of the POVs had like distinct characters, and it's so brave to not have any of the families have a point of view. And so it was really good. I'm going to keep it at 4.25 for now. I think I didn't really care about the content matter is not something that I really enjoy. And so I just, technically pretty really good. And now back to the future. Hello, I'm back in the future. Now it's back to me in the future. Now, anyways, the next book that I read in February was A Master of Djinn by P. Djèlí Clark. I had heard a lot of good things about this author and this book in general as well, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It almost got to that 5-star, but there are some things that I didn't quite enjoy, but we'll get into it. So this is about Fatma, who is the youngest woman working at the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities in 1912 in Cairo. And in this alternate history, there was a sorcerer who opened up a portal that let in all bunch of different magical folk. In Egypt, it's mainly Jinn, genies. But there are also other types of magical folk, such as dragons, fae, and goblins in other locations. Basically, just folklore is now real in the world, and because of that, Egypt has been able to become a powerful force, able to go up against and go toe to toe with forces like Germany, France, United States of America, etc. at this time. 1912, also note, is almost just before World War I, or the Great War at this point. I will say, I thought there was going to be something about World War I. There is, like, peace talks, but I don't know how different it is to, like, the real history. But anyways, Fatma is a investigator in this ministry, and she works along with the Cairo police to solve crimes, mysteries, stuff dealing with the magical folk. And the mystery here is that a bunch of people are mysteriously and magically killed, and they're all within a cult that worships the man who opened up the portal many years prior. I believe it was 100 years. I forget exactly. Al-Jahiz, who is the most famous man in history. He transformed the world 40 years ago when he opened up the veil between the magical and mundane realms before vanishing into the unknown. And so there's a cult kind of organization that worships him. They all die all of a sudden. And all of a sudden there's also just a person who's like, hey, I'm Al-Jahiz, come back to life. Hey! And so Fatma has to figure out who killed them. Obviously, it's this guy, who that guy is, and what is he planning. And I thought it was really fun. This book also contains, I don't know if you can, no, it says it at the back, it includes a short story that began it all, A Dead Djinn in Cairo, which is, you didn't see that, it didn't focus. It is a short story that predates the book in like a year, half a year before the book happens, where Fatma is introduced and basically lays out the world. I read it before I read the book. It's at the very end. And I think if you want to read this book, you should read the short story first and then this entire book, because the short story builds towards the main book, right? And so I really like the short story. I think it was one of the best I've read. The book expands on stuff from that short story in good and not so good ways. But overall, I think it was a really good mystery, really good fantasy, really good alternate history as well. Fatma is a really good, I almost said antagonist, protagonist. And there's a part where she gets a partner that she's not expecting, Hadia. And I loved Hadia, and I did not expect that to happen. And also, Fatma is in a relationship with another woman who worships the god Sekhmet from not Greek, Egyptian mythology. Seti? Sorry. Seti. Yes, sorry. When I was reading it, I would say Seti, but I was like, it's not Seti, it's Seti. Seti, Fatma, and Hadia are really fun characters, and I really enjoyed them. I think that Fatma being in this ministry is just her being a cop, but she's not a cop. She's an investigator for this ministry, sort of similar to like maybe I don't know, like an auditor, or like someone who's not within like law authority, but definitely dealing with law and crimes and stuff. I'm not fully sure how to explain that, but it just felt like she was just a cop. I compare this book to two very different books. The Hexologist, Josiah Bancroft, is sold, and also Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And Emily Wilde's tends to be something that I always return to. But Emily Wilde's, I compare this here because Fatma and Emily are both characters who are well versed within the magical realm that they are dealing with. The way that she not manipulates, but the way she talks with, bargains with, works with genies in this world in this book was really fun. And so it reminded me a lot of Emily Wilde. But she's also an investigator, and I, paired that with Isolde, who is a private investigator. What I was missing was, because you're in this like magical world, right? I kind of wanted Fatma to use the magical world with her investigations, right? Like, for example, Isolde has all her magical items, artifacts and stuff like that, and I just needed something more from Fatma using the ministry stuff. Like, her knowledge was really good. It's really well implemented, but I wanted like one or two things that were actually using stuff from the magic, especially because we learned so much about Egypt being a superpower in the world now because of the magic. I wanted her to use 2 or 3 gadgets constantly, maybe like one gadget constantly, and then 2 or 3 that are used for big set pieces. You know what I mean? Similar to Soul. There was also the ending was good, but I didn't like its like the ending, and I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but the ending of who this guy is, Al Jahiz, and what he's wanting to do. The set piece didn't really fit with what the book was, because the book was it's set in a fantasy world that's very steampunk as well, and so it made sense in the steampunk realm, but I just didn't like how the set piece was the big thing that happened at the end, but it just didn't align with how the story was going through. It became this huge bombastic thing when the investigation stuff was very interpersonal and very high stakes, and mundane in a way. I have in mind, it was a big mecha. It's a big mecha robot type deal, and I don't quite enjoy that reveal because it feels out of place. It reminds me now, it didn't remind me when I read it, but talking about big mechas, it reminded me a lot about Promare, right? Is that the movie? I watched it in theaters with a friend for no reason, and I didn't like the ending because the ending had the Ex Machina huge mecha all of a sudden. I'm like, that's not set up. This was not set up. And I didn't like it. However, the way that the problem was resolved, the way the plot was resolved, very aligned with how the story went. So it's not a 5 out of 5 as well. It's a 4.5. It's almost there, but not quite. Also, the short story had some feeling of cosmic horror as well, but there was not that many cosmic horror elements in here, and so I was missing that, which is why I kind of preferred the short story over the big story. But both are really good, and I do highly recommend. This is maybe the best book I read this month. Maybe. I think so. The next book that I read in the month of February was The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. In an effort to clean through my shelves a bit more, I wanted to revisit books that I read since like high school, early college that I haven't touched on in a hot minute, and I don't remember that much. And so I did just a random pull, random number, and I got Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And it's a 4 out of 5. This is a nonfiction book. I don't tend to read nonfictions because sometimes of the nonfiction that I've read, some of them have been kind of dry and slow. But I would not say this one's very dry or slow. It was pretty good. 4 out of 5. And it's about Henrietta Lacks, who was a poor black tobacco farmer who died in 1951 with cervical cancer. And as she was being treated, the doctors there took a sample of the cancer cells, and they created a cell culture called HeLa cells, and those became immortally replicating cells. And they were used to be able to developing the polio vaccine, cloning, gene mapping, and a lot more. And so it is an exploration. Rebecca Skloot is the author, is a character in the story in that she is the one investigating and looking into history and stuff like that of Henrietta Lacks, specifically dealing with Henrietta's daughter, Deborah. And it is trying to look at Henrietta's life and the impact that she left in her own family, and how her entire family has stayed poor while other people have benefited off of Henrietta's cells. And from like the doctor themselves who took the cells, they didn't benefit monetarily. They did a lot of good stuff with science and stuff like that, and medicine. But then when it became commercialized, these cells were being sold for hundreds, thousands, sometimes millions of dollars, and her family is not getting any of that money. And so it presents this ethical dilemma of cells and tissue, medicine. There's a long history alongside following the history of the family, Henrietta's life as a young girl, to a mother, to Deborah as a young girl, to her as an older woman at the beginning, or in when this book was published. As that is going on, we're also following the medical history going from 1940s forward, and how much strife was happening throughout that coincided, clashed, and countered some of the things that were happening with Henrietta Lacks and her family. And so it's a really interesting look at how science has evolved, and how it has evolved to and in response to how people are treated, and how people live and work. And like I said, Henrietta's family has been poor, while people have benefited from selling her own cells. At the same time, Deborah, at least, who is a real person, there's pictures of her as well. Deborah is a main, I can't even see what I'm showing, a main character in this, because she's Henrietta's only daughter, living daughter. She felt very strongly about how much good her mother's cells have done. Like, she would go to talks towards the end of the book where people would come up to her and tell her that I was saved from this disease or this cancer because of the studies from your mother's cells, or I was able to survive this, or my mother, my husband, whatever, were able to live because of the advancements benefited from Henrietta's cells. And so I think it's a really interesting look at different ways that can unfold. It's very well written and very structured. Like I said, it follows a history of the family alongside history of science and medicine. And I think it delivered some real info very well. There were some times that it sort of listed stuff and I just kind of got lost in the sauce of it. But I think that it's a very well written nonfiction book. I would not say that it's dry. Maybe it's a little slow, maybe. But it was a quick read. I didn't intend to read it this month, but it coincides with Black History Month. So it's a very poignant book as well. So if you want to learn about that history, I would highly recommend this book. It's one of the best nonfiction books I've read, and really powerful as well, because it's trying to talk about so many things, and it's just very well written. Also, it's a movie starring, I believe it's Rose Byrne as Rebecca, and then Oprah Winfrey as Deborah. And so it was a really good book. And the last book that I read in the month of February is Among the Betrayed by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This is the book 3 of the Shadow Children series. I gave it a 2.75 out of 5. This was not my favorite. This is the 3rd book of the Shadow Children. I keep wanting to say Shadow Hunters. Shadow Children. I read the first 2 in the past few months, Among the Impostors last month, and then Among the Shadows in December. and it's about a dystopian future in America where having 3 or more children is illegal. They're shadow children, but they're still there, and so they're trying to carve out a world in this dystopia. And I like the first 2 books because it presented really complex ideas for children. This is a children's series, and it followed the main character Luke, who becomes Lee when he becomes he pretends to be not a shadow child but has to leave home. The first book covers Luke at his home and then learning about the world. And the second book covers when he goes to a boarding school and he's learning about the world through those eyes as Lee. Towards the end of the book, he encounters another third child. There's a bunch of third children there as well. But that one third child, Jason, betrays them and is almost about to report a bunch of third children to the population police, which is the huge, big like Gestapo type, capital type. In the second book, Jason's about to report a bunch of third children to the population police. Lee stops him, and in the fallback, Jason, and then there's the boarding school that's only for boys. Maybe like a block away is a boarding school for girls, and they meet up in the forest. One of those girls is implicated by Jason's betrayal, and Jason's like, "Oh, these people are third children," but Lee sort of like, he's lying. He's the third child, so he gets arrested, and implicates Nina. Yeah, we get to the third book. The third book is about Nina, who is in jail, and she's told by one of the population police who arrested Jason and her, that they think that she tried to. It's complicated. And this is why it's annoying. She's a third child. She's pretending not to be a third child. She has an ID. It's illegal to have an ID. And so because of that, they think that she's not a third child. She's just a normal girl, first or second child. But she tried to implicate other people, and that's illegal, I guess. That was weird. And to be able to clear her name, she has to try to make 3 other children confess and say that they're third children so that they can get their family to be arrested, because it's illegal to help their children as well. So she's put into a cell with Matthias, Percy, and Aaliyah, I'm not fully sure. And she has to betray them among the betrayed. I'm gonna fully spoil this because I didn't enjoy the reveals. Turns out that we knew from the second book, for the first and second book, that the guy who arrested them, Mr. Talbot, is the father of a third child who was killed in a demonstration. And he helped Luke get that ID. He arrested Jason and Nina. Mr. Talbot is telling Nina to do this, to betray these kids. She can't do that. But then he's like, everyone's like, oh, it was all a test. It was all a test that, hey, you didn't betray us, so you're not a bad person like Jason was. Jason is bad. They were dating also. I forgot to say that. Jason and Nina were dating. Also, they're children. They're literally like 12 years old. They're 12 years old. It didn't really make sense. Anyways, it's all elaborate, very complex test on Nina to see if she's a bad person. And she succeeded because she wasn't able to betray them. And there's a point where she thinks that she's going to get arrested by a bunch of population police. So she tells the 3 kids to run away. She will be the distraction. They can go free. And yeah, that whole revelation, I hated. That was so complex and so. I didn't like it. And I definitely remembered her being. This is a reread of. Oh my god! I keep forgetting to say things about this. This is a reread. I read this when I was in elementary school, and I remembered her being in the cell with these 3 kids, but I don't remember anything prior to that. And they only spend the cell for like a third of the book. It's a really short book too, as you can see. And so, I just didn't like the complex, contrived test that they placed on her. And so I just didn't quite enjoy that aspect. I did like Percy, Matthias, and Alia. I think they were really interesting. At times, they sort of just became one character, and it could have been easier to just be one character, or at least two. Like Percy and Matthias are pretty similar, but the three of them pretty strong writing. Nina was also pretty good as well. She had a lot of complex thought, and so I think that's really interesting writing. Her and Luke are pretty well written, and had some good atmosphere. What with the cell that they're stuck in and stuff like that. But overall, I just did not like this revelation, this entire conspiracy. Luke was in on it as well. Mr. Talbot, the president of the boys' boarding school, is also in on it. And yeah, it's not amazing. So yeah. And yeah, that is all the books that I read in the month of February. I will say, yeah, maybe I expected to like Poppy War a lot more than I did. And I also expected to like A Master of Djinn more than I did, but they didn't really deliver what I wanted. But they were not bad. Three Body Problem also, I read it before. Pretty good science fiction. Hexologists, disappointing, but still good. And then the other books are there as well. And then what were the other books that oh my god, it's been a hot minute. Kane Chronicles, right? And then I had another Animorphs, right? Yeah, I think so. It's been a week and I forgot already. That's fine. Pretty fine month of books. Not amazing, not terrible. And currently I'm reading Night Film by Marisha Pessel, which is a recommendation from Jen at Literary Love 123. And I also have it right now, preliminary thoughts. I'm like halfway through. You can see the bookmark here. Preliminary thoughts, it's not amazing. I thought it was going to be better, but still pretty good. Right now, it's just been sort of slow, but not bad. It's definitely a slow burn. So I need to get to the big moment. I assume is going to happen. It hasn't gotten there yet, but I'm only up. It's 600 pages, and I'm on 340. And so I hope that it'll still be good. But for what it has been so far, it's been pretty good, but not amazing. Not what I wanted it to. I really, really wanted it to be really good. It's also, I think, supposed to be horror. But it's more thriller than that. But there have been some pretty scary parts. So we'll see. I will talk about this, obviously, in my wrap-up for January, March. So, yes. I will see you then. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to be passionate. And I'll see you later.